there's a point where pain is problematic. Like you should not be suffering in yoga poses, you know, like there's not, like that's not a good thing. And on the other spectrum of that is overly modifying poses all the time. You will never build stamina, you will never get stronger, and you'll never change the structure of the shape. And there's a point where overly modifying things is problematic as well, because just like when you put scaffolding on a building to repair it, the scaffolding shouldn't stay there forever. Right? Like, and I'm not saying not use props, but when they're overly adapted, like I love my props and we use props every single day, but there can come a point where the postures are so overly modified that someone's been doing yoga for 10 years and nothing has improved. They might feel better, but the structure's the same. They haven't opened up more joint space. They're still having to always like freeze the joint in that place. And the reason that I've had a couple of people text me and say, you're not asking about all of my injuries. I'm not a doctor, and yoga is mystical, not medical. And when teachers are overly addressing injuries, I personally find that problematic and an overstepping of boundary, because and I know a lot about the body, and I've taken therapeutic courses, and I have a master's in public health. I have studied graduate level anatomy and physiology and taken classes on muscle release and stuff. And I do that type of work, but also you can tell me the front of your shoulder hurts and I can give you props and adaptations and stuff, but I don't know where that injury came from. And I don't know that the pain that you're feeling that the source of it is actually where you think it is. Like oftentimes a shoulder thing, I have had someone who had a shoulder pain for 6 months. It was coming from their tooth. They ended up needing dental surgery. It was coming from a tooth. So if I sat there and medicalized their shoulder problem and was helping them fix their shoulder with yoga asana, and they would have never gotten their tooth surgery. Do you know what I'm saying? And that's the root cause, someone just said in the room. So we'll talk a little bit more about this week, but it's not because I don't care about your injuries. I care deeply. I have tons of pain in my body. I've had abdominal surgeries. I've mesh across my abdomen. I've broken both of my ankles and my left wrist and my right shoulder and like all kinds of crazy things, but politely and said with so much love, it's irrelevant. Because in time, our bones are pliant, they're water. And in time, as we put form on things and structure in things, joint space opens up and tissues start to follow and things can shift. And so it's like we adapt things for a while and then we slowly pull the scaffolding out so that we can push ourselves a little bit. It's the same reason that when I work with private clients, they should only see me for a limited amount of time, because my job is not to become indispensable to you. It's to give you the neurology to navigate your own body and to be empowered to take care of your longevity and your health. And it's extremely problematic for a teacher to be seeing a student for a really long time, because ultimately my goal is to give you a home practice. And I don't mean don't come to group class, because group class is community and that feeds us and nourishes us. But the goal of practice is that you would have a home practice, that you would be able to map and navigate your own terrain. I don't want to be a chiropractor who you have to see me every single week and I drive your car for you. I want you to drive your car. Body's a vehicle. And going to a chiropractor now and again is fine, but I'm very leery of someone who says I have to see them for the next 5 years, twice a week. That's problematic. They're driving your car for you. And I want you in control of your neurology. And that's why I'm pushing you guys a little bit in here in a way you're not used to, because I've had all kinds of conversations with all the clients here, because you all have my phone number and you text me and we talk, and I'm here for you and I support you, but I'm going to push you a little bit in a different way, because I know how therapeutic and healing it is. I was told that I would never do a twist again because of the mesh in my abdomen without pain, that I shouldn't back bend anymore, that I shouldn't do all kinds of things. In my Katonah practice, I worked through stuff and I put the right structure on things. And structure is everything, because organs are informed by structure. And like the portal between the shoulders and the hips is the housing of the lungs. And so that's why I make you flip your wrists and it's so uncomfortable, but in time it won't be. And I'm not talking about pain. There's no bonus points for suffering. If there's pain, the pose isn't right and we need to inform it differently. But discomfort sometimes happens because think about anytime you're driving in a new city, it's very uncomfortable. You don't know what to do. You don't know where the exits are. And that's what we're doing with building new highways in your neurology. And that's a weird process when you go somewhere new. But in time, that's building second nature, it's informed and educated. In time, it becomes third nature and you find freedom in the containment. And it becomes like, and you're safe because you're in your body and you're driving instead of a dependency on me or on someone else, which is such an awesome thing to get to drive your own vehicle and be the mediator. So I will always give you adaptations. I will always help you to support yourselves. I will also push you to build some stamina. And then sometimes people say, but you're young and da da da. And so then I like to remind everyone my two teachers are in their 70s and they're very frisky. So so that's my little speech for today. And we're going to dive into some practice. You're like, well, now we're scared. It won't be scary. Now we're not so sure about this. We're going to work with some forward folds and then do some restorative poses as well. So you'll need, if you don't have props in your house, you can adapt with books and towels and all kinds of things, but you will need some props. I like to have at least 3 or 4 blocks and a couple blankets with me. Again, towels and books can also be your friend. Before we go into all our forward folding, because hangs are very demanding, those forward folds, those uttanasas, they're very demanding. We're going to do a little bit of opening up the structure of our house because we all spend so much time sitting. So we're going to start in a supported bridge. And I like to have 2 blocks for this. The blocks can either be stacked this way underneath of the sacrum, or if you want more height, they can be upright this way. And if you're someone who really likes a lot of height, you might even have 3. But if you have 3 blocks in a supported structure, you need a blanket under the shoulders to support the scapula so that you don't end up too collapsed in the neck. So what this will look like is setting the blocks aside and coming onto your back and then hoisting up the hips to slide the blocks underneath of you. So this is going to be the lowest height, is if you have the 2 blocks on their lowest setting. I'm losing my mic here today. Or you can put them up on this next highest height side by side under the scaffolding of the pelvis. And if you had a 3rd block, it would be way up here. But again, then you're going to want to put either a block or a blanket or something underneath of the shoulders as additional scaffolding so that the lungs are supported. And now there's not that big extra curve in my neck. And then you can take the arms however you wish. So finding your way into a supported bridge. I really like starting classes with a supported bridge sometimes. It just gives us an opportunity to really open up the portal of the lungs. Again, the portal of the lungs is the frame of shoulder, shoulder, hip, hip. There's also the additional option in this pose of just for your reference, you can always put a strap around your thighs with a block between your thighs too, to give yourself more stability so that you don't have to hold yourself. And I really like to take palms up personally because shoulders move in lots of directions anatomically. So don't mishear what I'm about to say. Again, mystical, not medical dialogue. Mystical dialogue, shoulders only go one way. And that rotation is the armpit towards the heart. And we always want to find anatomically, that's external rotation, but we always want to find the sense of the armpit towards the heart because that expands, again, this portal of the lungs so that our lungs can be available to us. And then when you're in any yoga pose, the reason I talk so much in metaphor and myth when we're in class is to put your mind and your imagination into it. There's 3 fires in the body. The first fire is your procreation, your food, sex, water, survival, your ancestral self, your propagation. And the second fire is the heart and its community and communication. And the third fire is the mind and the imagination. The poses embody theory, which is why we talk so much theory. Pose embodies theory, and theory is implicit. It's the implicit self, the part of you no one can see. It's the build of soul. The explicit, the external is finite, the pose itself. And that's why we want to put something in it with imagination. The pose is linear, the pose is explicit, and it's finite, but the implicit is infinite. And so we give metaphor so that you can use your imagination, because that's the difference between an esoteric experience and one that is not. There's nothing special about being a spiritual person. Being spiritual is simply doing things that are outside of your particular frame of reference. And so it is a mystical experience to get yourself at a right angle so that the housing of the lungs and the diaphragm can move and you can take a big, deep breath. It is spiritual to work with the feet correctly, to substantiate the hips so that you can find your magnetic north and you can put yourself on a spit and then articulate it. So here, put your imagination into your body, open up your mind into your body, and start to fuel the breath down into the low belly, into the housing of the pelvic bowl of that first fire. Belly, chest, throat. Teacher's job, and then your job in your poses is simply to organize your house so that your lungs are available to you, so your adrenals are available, so your alarm system isn't going off all the time, so you're not back in your tail. So continue to focus now on those portals to the lung. We talk about the 10 gates, the 10 portals. Portal to the lungs is the nostrils. The housing again is shoulder, shoulder, hip, hip. And sense that implicit piece of yourself, we call it the Sutra Atman in yoga, the thread of the self, being stitched with every breath of the narrative that you're weaving. I want you to start to breathe in that polarity of grace and effort. So on your inhalation, you can sense the breath warm, moving up the back, warmer on the inside from the perineum up to the midbrain, the third eye center. And every exhale, it's cool and it moves down the front of you like water. So you're receptive and available. And as you make effort, know that you will receive grace. Know that good technique is what makes you safe. Applying good technique. So even in this shape, you can still use the imagine to know that this fire and water is also the soul dropping in and the spirit rising. It's the wrap of the moment, because the grace is the stability that you receive when you apply the right effort and the right structure. So keep honing the breathing and putting that first spin, that wrap around yourself with your breath. Fire and water, grace and effort. And we'll stay here just a couple more minutes. Just lean into the breath and again to the theory. So the pose can be the embodiment of the theory. We're learning to occupy more of ourselves. We're masters at compensatory patterns, at compensating, of getting around ourselves. But instead of getting around ourselves, we want to learn to integrate and harmonize and occupy the very middle. This is not required, but some of you may wish to take a frame of opposite palm to opposite elbow over your head for the last couple minutes. If that, again, causes any pain in the shoulders, don't do that. But if you wish, you can frame it. Adding that next piece of yourself so that now you have a frame around your face, like you were the center of the picture frame, center of your own story. Really putting a nice ujjayi on the breath for the last little bit, that breath of the conqueror, if you weren't already, that sense of a little squeeze around the glottis, the back of the throat. So you can think of it like a filter in a slough. And as you're breathing in, it's extracting nutrients and it's keeping out the stuff that you don't need. It's filtering the breath. And same thing as you exhale, it's releasing. So every inhale is a nourishment and every exhale is a release. Good. And then just for a moment before we come down, lift your legs up to the sky. So you're getting a little inversion, the pelvis over the heart. And think that you're letting the ball of the hip of the femur bone really sink into the socket of the hip, the cup. All over in the body, we have balls and mitts, pieces of ourselves that fit other pieces of ourselves. And contact breeds contact. The first fold creates the second fold. So the more points of good contact we have, the better our connection and currency can move through us. The chi, the prana, the vital life energy. And you can know that you're meant to fit yourself, even though you're not meant to fit everyone else. And so you can understand you and let others experience you as a phenomenon like they experience all phenomenon. And you'll suffer less than always seeking to be understood. Good, and nice and gently bring the feet down and come up on your toes and remove the blocks, and then allow yourself to think that you're going down butt first so that you can keep the natural curve in the spine. And then bring your knees together and separate your feet a little bit wide for a moment and let the knees collapse just to broaden the back of the sacrum after that long time in the back bend. And then let's come over to one side and up to all fours to stoke our personal fires a little bit before we move into some more folds. And this is a piece of the practice that when it's new is agitating. But if you think about a washing machine, what is literally the thing inside of it called? An agitator, right? And it's the agitator that whips things up and spins things around and gets stuff clean, right? And so again, I'm never talking about pain when I speak this way, but agitating ourselves a little bit is like scaling a mountain. The air gets thin, it's a little irritating, but it seduces us out of our habits, which is one of the goals of yoga. If it was first nature, we wouldn't need to do it if it came naturally. There's nothing natural about a yoga pose. When people call it functional, it kind of makes me laugh, because when no one picks up their groceries in triangle pose, right? Like it's functional because it builds our longevity. So we're going to come to all fours and hands forward and really take a good measure. So you have 90 degrees from the shoulder to the wrist and 90 degrees from the hip to the knee. And you have another frame here. So hand, hand, knee, knee, hand to shoulder, wrist, wrist. And inhale as you round your spine. And exhale as you back bend and you take the shoulders, the portal of the lungs forward. And go forward and back. And slowly go faster, as we'll say. And you can really isolate it in the pelvis so that you're down in the first floor of the house, and eventually the shoulders and the head might start to come along for the ride sort of effortlessly. And now start to pump your breath so that you're doing a Bastrika breath or a bellows breath. So it sounds like this. And the more you anchor your feet to the mat, the more fluency you will find, and the lighter the hands will become out of that anchor of the feet. And some of my students who are more used to doing this, you can really let it get a little unwieldy and really start to whip yourself up a little bit. In X, in X, in X. It's meant to make you get a little sweaty and to start to really heat things up. And you can know that it's safe for you because you're driving it. And it's your feet that are making contact to the earth, creating the stability for this shape. Fire is the agent of chaos. It's the agent of transformation. And we're whipping ourselves up a little bit from 1 to 9, which is the pelvic floor and the third eye center, the center of your achievement and the place where the soul dropped in, the universal and the personal, because we are shifting chemicals. So let it get a little unwieldy for 30 more seconds. In X, in X. Only going as fast as is appropriate for you in time, but know that like if you're not doing it because you just don't want to, that's maybe not the best game to play. And now pause, take a deep breath in. Long breath out. Good. And then everyone's favorite thing, we're going to flip our wrists for a moment. So take the wrists all the way around. And again, this comes from the shoulder rotating. The shoulder towards the heart is what allows for the wrist to flip. And really make sure that the good contact is in the thumb and the index finger. And now spin your pelvis around. So a student was having a really hard time with this last week in class in Kalispell. She was like, I don't understand how you're moving your pelvis like that. And I said, I want you to pretend there's a pencil on your tailbone and you're swishing it around. Because we're playing the game of water now. So again, the 3 fires, your survival and propagation, your communication and participation, and then the fire of the mind and the imagination. So we want a fire that's uproarious, but it's also contained. And so we soothe it with the breath. Good. Change directions, moving around to the left. Notice if it's easier or more difficult than spinning to the right. Usually we have a side that we favor. Notice if your tendency is to stare at your navel. We like to get around our personal game, AKA the places we don't like to go, when instead, again, we want to organize ourselves. Good. Pause back in the center. Flip the wrist back forward again. And I know the tendency is going to be to want to really stretch those out. But now lean back and interlace your fingers at the webbing and place them back on the ground. And sometimes I will even interlace and hook my thumbs around a block with a very light interlace. That's not required. You can place the block the long way, which can give you a little more structure, but interlaced at the webbing. And then again, go forward and back. So inhale and exhale through the cat-cow. eventually the head will come along for a ride, but you can play it a little safer just down in the pelvic floor at first. Good, and then come back to the center again, pause. So we're going to keep the interlace and spin around ourselves again. If you're feeling frisky, you can flip the hands and bring the back of the hand. It's not comfortable. I will never require this, but it's breaking up the precipice in the back of the shoulders. Every hard thing is the memory. So if you're feeling very frisky, you can come onto the backs of the hands and you might even flip it again. So I'm here. You do not have to do this, but I know Deborah will want to, so I got to give the option. So you're here to the back of the hand. This is one option, or Deborah, you can keep going and flip it again. So that yeah, exactly. And then just spin your pelvis around. If you're feeling a little masochistic, you flipped the wrists. It's fine to just do it with interlace. It opens up the lungs and the collarbones and the wrists, but it's not really that comfortable. And then go the other way. So we're temping the fire with water. Good, and then pause. And Deborah, the worst part is coming out of that. So nice and slow, unpeel it. Good. And then hands right back down. And let's come to a downward facing dog now that we have some pliancy and a little bit of heat. And really find a wave in your spine. And the wave in the spine will come from putting the weight in the base knuckles, from lifting the perineum and the pelvic floor up and back, from spreading the balls of your feet, opening the kidneys and the adrenals so they're available to you, spreading the back of the thigh, a little bend in the knees because knees are kidneys and we want kidneys that flush well. And put yourself on a spit, universal to personal, perineum to the crown of the head, pubis, navel, sternum traveling forward. And then walk your feet up towards your hands. Go nice and slow. A little bend in your knees or a big bend. Just hang over the legs for a second. We're going to move into the demand of some forward folds for a little bit. Good. To come up, we're going to roll up, but it's different than how at least I was taught to roll up when I was younger. I want you to keep throwing the knees forward as much as you can. Knees keep going forward as you create the wave to come up. Good. So just for a second while you're standing, I want you to watch, because it's definitely not how, this is how I was taught to roll up before. It was like a little bend in the knees and I'm tucking my butt, and it's very back oriented, right? Like you guys know what I mean? You really feel your back. Now watch. It's like if someone was standing here and they were continuing to say, push your knees into my hands. Look how far forward my knees are going. Do you see how it was like a wave? And when you do that, you won't feel your back. Knees, 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 knees. And it becomes driven by the pubis. And it's very interesting. There's no pressure in the back. Like it takes all the weight out of it. And we overdo everything with our backs. Can I get an amen? Right. Okay. So we're going to step the feet together. I'm just stepping off of my mat so that you guys online can see me. And hook your thumbs. And really squeeze your legs together and go up through the middle arches of the feet, up through your inner thighs. So if you think that you're lifting your medial arches, that's that center arch of the foot, and then cross-reference your feet. So what I mean by that is find the big toe ball of your foot and draw a line to your outer heels and stabilize that point. And then now let's make an X. So find the baby toe ball of the foot and draw a line to your inner heels and then lift up. X marks the spot, the center. But yes, you just got taller. Good. And now armpits towards the heart. Lift up, up, up and off of yourself. Squeeze your butt just a little bit, like not aggressively, but just enough to kind of bring your tail under you. And then tick-tock side to side. And I don't care how fast you do this. This is not a place to whip into a frenzy, but a little bit of side to side, opening up some of this structure that supports the breathing again. Little tick-tock side to side, very good. And then pause at the top and really establish yourself on a spit and then go up and over to the right and take the right side of your lung, your right shoulder, a little bit forward. And then back up to the center, go up and off of your kidney band and over to the left. Take your left lung forward, because the tendency will be to roll forward, to round. Good, come back up to the center. Interlace your fingers under your chin and keep your feet touching. And start to bend your knees with your, so it's like you're lifting your throat, because there's the chin and the pubis are corresponding. And keep sinking a little bit lower and a little bit lower and a little bit lower, and bend your knees and come all the way down. Good, and then release the hands and take the feet hip distance apart. And measure that 2 fists between the arches. And then take a frame, opposite palm to opposite elbow over your head. And gently rock back and forth from the ball of the foot to the heel. And any time that a pose becomes arduous and difficult, put your intellect into it. Feed yourself on theory, because that will take your brain out of the arduousness of the pose. So here you can think that as you roll back into the heels, you're putting the brakes on, you're dragging your butt, as we say. And when you go forward into the ball of the foot, it's the accelerator, and it's you traveling forward. So you can play with that in your mind, putting the brakes on, digging your heels in is the idiom we use, and forward to the ball. And then find the middle so that you're even between those arches. So now you have 2 points of contact, the polarity, the feet, and then you have the polarity, the 2 shoulders, and now you have a frame of 4, and then the very middle of yourself gives you 5. And now we're holding. And lift your perineum, lift your sitting bones in the fold, because now we've reversed that spit. So 1 is where the soul drops in, that's the perineum, the crown of the head is the universal, and we flipped that now. The soul dropping and the spirit rising, effort and grace, the wrap of the moment. And sometimes we need breaks in forward folds because these are difficult. They're demanding on the muscles of the legs. So if you ever need a break, you can take one. I like to break by squatting, but that's not available to all of us. And now drop into your breath for these last couple minutes in this shape, and put a nice Ujjayi breath on it, and bring your attention over to the front of your left shoulder and inhale in an imaginary sphere from your left shoulder to your right shoulder. And then exhale around your back from your right shoulder to your left shoulder. And again, putting your imagination in it will help you deal with the tenacity and the resilience that's required to hold the pose. So inhale, sun rises at the front of the left shoulder. Sunset is at the right shoulder. The moon rises behind your right shoulder, and it sets behind your left shoulder. So wake the day and sleep the night and breathe around yourself. Take 5 breaths like that. Good, release your hands, let your arms be super heavy. And let's try that roll up again. Throw the knees forward, forward, forward. As you come up like a wave, the pubic bone at the top. Knees forward, even more. Like imagine I was pulling your knees forward. Yes, yes, yeah. And let your spine be curved. So come down one more time. Do you mind if I touch you? Keep going up. So round your back and roll through your spine, and start to come up, but roll it round your back. There you go. Knees forward as you roll up. That's a flat back. She's like, I can't do that. There you go. Knees forward. And then at the top, the pubis unfolds. You're like, I'm like, round your back. You're like, I can't round my back, right? Because so she was like, I'm like, round your back. She's like this. I'm like, round your back. She's like, has this beautiful flat spine. Why? Because we spend so much time playing lines and being taught to do everything linearly, but nothing is linear. The line sets up the conditions for a sphere and volume. This is good. We're going to do this in a second. But here, finding the wave out of the pubis, because then we have flexibility in the spine. That's it, Deborah. I know it's a new road. It's new neurology. You play the line very well, and that's good. You know how to hold the center, right? And how to hold that midline. That's awesome. It's a skill. Now we want to teach you to make a wave. We can do both, right? Okay, so back up at the top again, just for a moment, take the clasp of the thumbs and tick-tock again. Just opening that up. Good. Nice. Pause. Interlace your hands behind your head now. I'm just stepping back for the camera. And hug your elbows forward and pubis forward. Find a little back bend. So you're hugging your elbows in like you were throwing your head back like a ball in a mitt. Good. Now keep back bending and start to bend your knees and come into a chair. So there's still this sense of a piece of you going back, a piece of you going forward. And now keep going until you're parallel to the floor, which is what you were just doing. And now you'll do this very well. Yes. And now punch your hands forward, 2 fists. Very strong. So there's a trajectory going forward and a trajectory going back. And find the balls of your feet so you can perk up your butt. Good. And now keep folding, belly to thighs. Yes. Nice job. And now slide your hands underneath of your feet for a gorilla pose or Padahastasana, hand to foot pose. And bend the knees, putting your mind in it for the tenacity of the hold again. Forward folds are very demanding. And go into your breath again. So the ball of the foot is a lung. Again, the corresponding parts in the body. Look between your legs for a moment so it's a portal to the past. Memory is always behind us. And you can see what's behind you. And the pose is a very yin-oriented pose. So it's lunar, it's soft, it's cool. But we're using the play of memory behind us to potentiate ourselves. So looking at the portal between the legs, and then using the wisdom, the lessons of the past to potentiate ourselves forward. And we play the potentiation by the ball of the foot. Five more breaths, real steady. Good. Take your hands out from under the feet. We're going to try to put a wave on it again. So bend your knees. Let your torso be so heavy. Round your back. Let it be heavy. Throw the knees forward. Pubis forward. Put a wave through the body all the way up. That's better. We're going to get there. Right at the top, she was here, and then she went right at the top. She was like, no wave. No wave. You started with the wave though. I'm going to get you there. It's new. It feels so good once you can find the wave, because that's something that is fluid and moving, right? Okay. So I'm going to take you through a way of organizing ourselves that we call the lo shu. It's an ancient Chinese number system. I'm not going to over explain it because we're just in a class, but again, to put our imagination in it, you're going to interlace your fingers and flip your palms up to the sky. Deborah and Liz and Laura, if you want, you can hold a block in your hands for King of the Mountain, but I'm not going to make my new people do it because they'll never come to yoga again. So just interlacing the fingers up. We won't do this today, but we do this for 9 minutes. And I won't make you do it. I'm just not trying to scare you. So I'm like, just interlace. The block gets very heavy about minute 3. Good, but it's a way to organize. And now close your eyes a little bit, 9/10 of the way. If that's throwing your balance too much, you can keep your eyes open, but a soft gaze at the floor. And take your attention down into the perineum. Again, that's the space between the anus and the sex organs. And this is 1. So we say it's the metaphor of where the soul dropped in. It's your primal nature, your ancestral self. And then I want you to walk up an imaginary staircase to the back of your right eye. This is the number 2, and it's where you have a reaction. It's the goal set in the back of the mind. It's where we process memory. And then walk down an imaginary staircase in your body around your back to your left armpit and turn your heart a little bit to the right, ever so slightly. So because the goal is always in time, so it's spinning. So we're moving towards 2 o'clock. And then push up through your left hand and crawl up a staircase to the front of your left eye, which is the number 4. And it's the innocence of your vision. So you had a reaction, you set a goal, you articulated it with the heart, and now you're looking out into the world for how you could enact it. And then we reconcile these 2 points of polarity with 5, which is dead in the center of yourself. So it's you. It's your personal abode. It's I go in, I go out, I breathe, I speak, I am. And then travel down to your right buttock bone and your right foot. And yes, that's perfectly fine, Nancy, to have your hands at your side if your arms are fatigued. And this is where you take your Ferrari out for a spin. It's your personal garage. So you take a risk and you go out to enact your vision. And we're almost there. Push up through your right hand. Good. And this is like your home office. It's your trust. And it's not the world is trustworthy. It's your trust in yourself. And then take the long road through time all the way around your back to your left sitting bone for 8. And 8 is your embodiment and your willpower, your tenacity. And now go up to your third eye center, which is the center of your achievement. This is 9. It's the stellar of the stellar, the trinity of the trinity. And then put a giant sphere around yourself for 10. Take a deep breath in. And exhale and lower your arms. Good, very nice. And then just swing side to side. So that's something called the low shoe. It's called the magic square. All the numbers add up to 15. It's a map. It's just another map for traversing your terrain. So we say body is a house with 3 floors and 9 rooms. Bottom floor is the ground of being. Second floor is the ground of doing. Third is the ground of seeing. It's all your sensory stuff. And then you have a left and a right. And the more we just organize your house, then, your kidneys can flush and the lungs can pump and the heart can pump. Good. And then pause at the center. Very nice. We have one more hang. So feet hip distance apart. Another way to measure hip distance apart is to turn a foot in and then spin it back out. And that's the measure of the outer hips. And now take a frame of opposite palm to opposite elbow alongside of your ears and find a chair pose again. Take a nice deep breath, armpits towards the heart, finding some tenacity in the legs. It takes a lot of tenacity to be in the body on a planet, right? It's a lot of work being a human. And now keep folding, belly to thighs, all the way down. And if you wish here, if you're struggling with these hangs, you can take a blanket and put it underneath of your heels, which will help to bring you a little more into the ball of the foot if being in the ball of the foot feels difficult, if you tend to live back in the heels. And then you can bring your hands to the floor, or if it's available to you, swing your hands behind and cup your heels in your palms. And not everyone will be able to do this today, and that's okay. But if it's there and you can find the whole archetype, then know that contact breeds contact, and you can find yourself here. And we'll use that magic square in a different way. So 1, lift the tailbone up. 2, send the right knee slightly forward. 3, take your outer left hip and move it left. 4, the left knee moves slightly forward. 5 is the perineum. 6, take the right sitting bone up. 7, think that the right hip is moving out. 8, the left sitting bone is moving up. And then 9 is the tailbone. And put your mind and your imagination back in the breath again. This is a very good place to play the spit. And take 5 more breaths. Good, very nice. And then to stretch this out, come to a dog. So you can walk the feet back. Nice, you guys. It's still a fold, but we've sort of partially unfolded the fold. Buttock bones high, armpits towards the heart. Very nice. Good. And then whichever direction, well, actually, I'm going to take you in a different way. Walk your feet forward to your hands. I was going to have you lunge into it, but I changed my mind. Let's try the roll up one more time. Round your back, knees forward. Let it come from the pelvis and find the wave up. Very good. Very nice. And then separate your feet a bit wider than your shoulders, facing the long edge of your mat. We're going to need them in a minute. So before you do that, get your blocks ready. And you can just place them out of the way, forward. Some of you have not done this little swimming thing before. So I'm going to have you watch for a moment and I'll talk you through it nice and slow. We cross-reference a lot in Katonah yoga because all over in the body, that's the musculature, how the musculature works. So I'm going to cross one arm under the other, and I'm only going to heel toe my feet out as wide as I can, keeping contact. Then we'll hang out here for a moment, but then we're going to go for essentially a swim. So I'm going to take my bottom arm, my right arm out and twist, and I'm going to trace it with my gaze forward and around to make contact. And the knees can be bent. That doesn't change it. Not all of you are going to do this today, but later in it, some of us might come all the way under. That is not required at all, but I know that Liz and Deborah will probably go there, so I'm just giving them that option. Otherwise, we'll just hold in the rotation. And later, we're going to hold here. I'm just giving you a little visual because I don't want you to have to crank your neck once you're in the shape. So take your feet out a little wider than your hips, and first just come into a fold. And then take your right hand across and grab your left shin, and you can bend your knees. And then take your left arm over the top. And if straight legs feels appropriate, then you can have straight legs. Otherwise, you can, again, bend. So 1 is the tailbone. 2 is the right knee, organize yourself. And these maps are just a way of organizing your body. 3 is your outer left hip and it's moving left. 4 is your left knee and it's moving slightly forward. 5 is the center of the perineum. And then 6, take your right sitting bone up a tiny bit. These are little micro movements. 7, widen your left hip out to the side. 8, lift your left buttock bone a tiny bit. And then 9, pubis, navel, sternum lengthens. Good. Now take your right arm, your bottom arm, and spin it up to the sky and twist. Wrap your left armpit towards your heart. And now watch your right hand, take it forward and swim it over the top and grab your left shin. Good. Now take your left arm, nice and slow. Wrap your right armpit towards your heart. Take your left arm up. So you're spinning your chest left and then go forward, left arm forward and sweep. And you can hold higher than the shins if you want to hold just below the knee. Good. Again, right arm, take it up, trace it forward, forward, forward. Catch the shin. Left arm, take it up. And if you want to go really slow, you can. I'm going to give you a little freedom now. Some of you might choose to go a little bit quicker, never fast, but just kind of moving with the breath. And then Deborah and Liz, if you wish, you can start to add the spin in and out of the lateral side bend. And we'll all just go a couple more rounds, whichever option you're choosing. Good. Nice. Come back to the center after you finish that last round and uncross your arms for a moment. Good. And now get those blocks ready out in front of you. Take your right hand to your left ankle, your left hand out on a block out in the front of yourself. And now use that to turn under your left armpit. Good, that's it. Spinning under yourself. Good, and then let's switch sides. Put your right hand on the block, your left hand to your right shin, stretching that block out in front of you. And turn under the right armpit. Yeah, that's it. Right hand is, this is literally why we do this, is to mess with your neurology. Left hand to right shin, right hand to the block. Yes, good. And now go under your armpit. So you're turning your chest to the right. Yes, that's it. You've got it. So all this cross-referencing stuff 100% messes with your brain. And that's part of the idea, right? To imprint something new in our neurology. It's very good for our brain cells. Good, and then unwind it. And walk back towards the front of your mat and find a dog. Sitting bones high. And then widen your feet as wide as your mat for a moment so that we're messing with the archetype of the dog. Nice wide feet. And then the feet back hip distance apart. This is optional. Some of you will want to come forward into a floating up dog. So the toes curled under, lungs forward. Good. And then come to your knees. Those are difficult, those hangs. You did a wonderful job. They're demanding. They're bizarrely demanding. And a lot of this is new material. So thank you for doing an awesome job. Okay, let's take a child's pose, a nice juicy one. So there's a few ways you can do this. You can roll up a blanket, which I sometimes like to do. You can put a stack of several blankets behind the knees, with towels. And then 3 blocks. And we've done this before now, but I'll show you. So 1 block under your right armpit, 1 block under your left armpit, 1 block under your head. And that's one option. Those of you at home, if you don't have enough blocks for that much, you can place one the long way under your sternum and one under your head with your hands out in the shape of a V. So if you only have 2 blocks, one goes here, one goes here. If you have more blocks, take advantage of it. I need 3 blankets today. Yep, just like that. So take the 2 that go on your armpit, under your armpits, and angle them, because that's the other way. Yes, exactly, because that will allow you to get them underneath of your armpit. So you're nestling one under and one under and one under the head, like so. And you're allowing the armpits to really come into the blocks, to really sink in. That's it. Good. And the forehead is down. And stretch your arms out to a V, Liz, so you're not on your elbows. You too, Laura, up on your fingertips. Yes, make it buoyant. There's no reason to play with collapse structure. Even if there's not blocks under the armpits and you have 2, you still want to wrap the armpits towards the heart and be up on the fingertips. And then again, put your mind and your imagination back into the shape. Put a wrap on the breath again. The breath warm, the fire coming in and up the back, and water down the front. And if you have blocks under your armpits, it's normal for there to be a tingling sensation from the flush of the lymph. And traverse your own terrain in your mind. So feel the big toes touching, knee, knee, hip, hip, the frame of the hips to the shoulders. That V for victory, the equilateral triangle of the 2 arms stretching out, strength, structure, and stability. Triangles are the strongest form in nature. And gentle pressure on the forehead. And 10 more breaths here. If you really need a place to put the mind, because focusing on the breath is difficult, you can count the breath, but put your imagination and your intellect into it. Again, the pose is the container for the theory. So stimulate the 3rd fire, the mind, the imagination. Good, and then very gently walk the hands back in. You can come off of the props. Very nice. And sit on the edge of a blanket. I'm going to face you, but you can just face the front of your mat. Or 2 blankets as you wish. So we're going to replicate the same shape that we just made standing. And so a narrow V, you can take a little bend in the knees, right hand to right shin, left hand to left shin. And a little micro bend in the knees or a big bend, depending on your flexibility. And we're going to do the same thing that we did. So take the right arm out and twist left. Good. And then swim the right arm over the top and grab your left shin. Good. Nice. You can, does that feel okay? You can widen the feet a little bit. Yeah. Okay. That's perfect for good. Okay. And then the left arm up and out and forward. Good. And go for that little swim. And when you open up, again, you can think that you're really lengthening the side body. And it doesn't have to go fast. You can linger anywhere you want to linger. Some of you might be swimming like you are headed somewhere, which is also okay. Just cross-referencing yourself, putting a spin on it so you can see around yourself. This is where lines start to get a little more spherical. Nice. Good, do one more set. And then pause and unwind your arms, grab your big toes and pull up almost like you were finding a little subtle back bend. Yeah, the chest forward. And then take a frame over your head and sit all the way up. Good, there should be a nice wave. Yes, nice wave in the spine and lower your arms down. Good. And then let's take a seated forward bend. Paschimottanasana. So sit yourself up. I like to put a block between my legs so that I have something to rest my forehead on, and get on your perineum so you're on a downhill slope. Because the minute you're on your perineum, then you can see I have a good wave on my spine now, as opposed to being back on my tail, which is always limiting the breath and squishing your adrenals, right? So instead, let your adrenals and your kidneys be available to you. Feet are hip distance apart, deep breath in, and then fold from the hip crease. And you'll see the knees will line up with the armpits, and you can grab your heels if that's available to you, and then rest your forehead on your block if that's available, or stack a couple blocks. And again, the mind and the imagination into the body. And in your mind now find a line, a spin from the perineum to the third eye center. And put yourself on a spit. Again, the soul drops in and the spirit rises. And now draw a line from your left sitting bone to your right eyeball. The seasons. Your embodiment to your vision. And then a diagonal line from your left eyeball to your right sitting bone, and expand that. Your tenacity and your ability to see, to take a risk, and to have vision. And then left shoulder to right shoulder, align. The spin of the hours, dawn to dusk, innocence of the vision and the experience on the right. And the whole of yourself occupied. Very good. Lengthen the front of your spine forward to sit all the way up. Good. And then any little wiggles you need to there to open that up, roll out the ankles. We're going to take a 5-minute shavasana and then do some breath work because you worked hard. You deserve a shavasana. Maybe we'll even do the breath work on our backs. So come to lie on your back. Actually, we are going to do the breath work on the back. So I'm going to ask you to do something before you lay down so that you don't have to do it later. You're going to line a blanket up with your belly button. One good way to take that measure is your own hand. But on your back, have a blanket just very on its lowest height because it doesn't take much, but it will just help to angle your diaphragm correctly. So the bottom edge of the blanket in line with your belly button for your shavasana. And then you can bend the knees or whatever, but just having that blanket ready for our breath work. I'm going to hit the lights in here for you guys.
Are we also not striking in the evening? We do yoga as well.
So as you come to lie on your back, allow your belly to be soft and your chest to be still. And take 3 or 4 slow breaths. Just letting the abdomen be soft. Again, tuning into this sensation of the 2 portals to the lungs, the nostrils. And then allow yourself to release control of the breath. And slowly start to transition into a breath practice, but we're not going to move the body. So staying on your back now, begin with the most simple and yet the most complex and most difficult pranayama, which is simply to observe the breath without manipulating it. So simply watch and observe for another moment the movement and the flow of the breath. It's the most advanced because it's difficult not to control it. It's simply observe life as it's breathing through you. Now start to transition, inhaling for 6 and exhaling for 6 with no retention and no pause. It's transitioning again to a 6 count in breath and a 6 count exhalation with no pause at the top of the in breath and no pause at the bottom of the exhale. So as you inhale, you're inhaling down to your root from the universal above you, down into the perineum. And as you exhale, that's reversed. The movement shifts from the perineum up through the crown of the head. The in-breath takes you into your deeply personal form, into your inner alchemy and the fertility that's created through your words and your actions. And as you exhale, the breath travels out to the planet. So as you inhale, you're surfing the wave of the ocean, your personal wave deeper into yourself. And you can imagine that you're really being nourished by the universe in this way. And prana coming in. And there's this association between the portal to the lungs of the nostrils and the belly button. When you were in the womb, the portal to the lungs was the navel. And once you were born, the portal became the 2 nostrils. So there's this correspondence between the rise and the fall of the belly and your 2 nostrils. And as you continue to breathe in this way, slightly contract the glottis so that you're doing an ujjayi breath, like you were fogging up some glasses or a mirror, that ha sound. A long, sustained oceanic breath, like a wave coming in, and the filter of the throat helping to extract the space dust and minerals from the universe and placing them deep in your bones. And the wisdom and the poetry and the insight you gain from experience is breathed back out into the ocean that we share. And you're using the breath now to very gently manipulate the temperature of the body as you warm from the inside out with the breath. And it's like a silk thread moving through a needle in a continuous movement. At the next exhale, let it go and return to the spontaneous breath. Let it be unpredictable. Just feeling the power of the breath as you are its disciple, not its disciplinary. The breath moves through you all the way back from the ancestors, pulsing you forward to future generations. The potency and the unpredictability drawing you into a relationship with stability as you now put a frame back on the breath. So now inhale for 4. Retain the breath for 4. Exhale for 4 and stay empty for 4. So a frame on a frame. And as you inhale for 4, you can start to put your imagination in it, thinking of the phases of the moon. Right now, we're at the new moon, the start of the cycle today, and it's the velvet, fertile darkness. And every time you breathe in, the moon waxes and becomes brighter, and it's held full at the top of the in-breath where you hold the breath, and it reflects all of its light. And as you exhale, the moon wanes and you move back to the new moon again, the richness and the fertility of darkness and the primordial. So use your mind to measure the count and to give yourself a boundary and to demand that your breath conforms to the count that you set. So inhaling 4, retaining 4, exhaling 4. Just notice tendencies to be sloppy and make a deal with yourself that you're going to make it measured and precise. And in the process of putting a frame on that which is wild, you will build a relationship with unpredictability. Imagine that as you inhale now up the front, it's full over your head. And as you exhale, it moves down the back and is empty at the perineum. So now shift it. And as you inhale, it goes up the front of you and you hold it full above your head. And the exhale falls down your back. And then you're empty at the perineum. And now you can use this movement to invoke the seasons. So spring is rising up the front of you. And as you hold that breath full, it's the pregnant pause of summer, the fecundity. And as you exhale, it's the season we're in now. It's the fall, the descent, the killing energy. And then the bottom of the perineum empty of air, you step into introspection of winter and the cave of insight. And you occupy the center of the map and you wrap in all directions and use your imagination to move in a sphere around yourself with the count of the breath, soothing the sound of your own body breathing. And then again, release the framed practice as if you were flinging open the door to a stable and watching the horse run out. And you take the pattern off the breath again and you let it be uneven. And you let it go wherever it wants to go. Now bring your tongue behind your front 2 teeth and leave your mouth a little bit open and start to pull the breath over the tongue on the inhale and exhale out the nose. It's called Satali breathing. So your mouth is open, your tongue is on the back of your 2 front teeth and you're slurping the breath in. It'll make a slurpy sound. And you'll exhale out the nose. It's a wet, sloppy sound. You maybe even imagine that the breath on the right side of the tongue is filling the left kidney and the breath coming in the left side of the tongue is filling the right kidney. So you can cross-reference yourself and you'll feel how this breath cools you down instantly. It takes the heat down. Do it one more time, really sloppy and loud. And then make it a little sneakier by slightly closing the mouth. So you could do this if you were standing in line at the bank and you were hot. Pulling the cooling air over the tongue. And then release the practice again back to the spontaneous natural breath. And notice the baseline now after trying a few techniques. Now bring your palm to your belly over your navel center. Or if you wish, you can make a fist in your hand over the navel. So it's like a ball in the center of a mitt. This connection of the navel plexus is said to be the center of all the nadis, the energy channels, the rivers in yoga. And now actively pull the navel back and exhale forcefully out your nose. So you're going out, 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 snapping the navel back, and the inhale will happen naturally. Nice and forcefully, X, X, X. In the old teachings of yoga, this is the Shat Karmas. It's a psychic cleansing technique for the astral eye. So as you push the breath out of the skull, it's like you're oxygenating the midbrain and you're shining and moving outward, oxygenating the brain stem, the spine, every piece of you down to the marrow. Keep pumping out, out, out. Take a deep breath in. 3 small sips through your mouth. Hold your breath, topped off, squeeze the anus, the sex organs, pull the navel back, lock the chin, and then exhale, let it go. And soften everything. And then we're going to do it again, hand back to the navel, start forcefully exhaling back. If this is new to you, go really slow. And now start to add an equal forceful inhale. So it's a push-pull, a Bhastrika breath. You may feel lightheaded as this technique is like a bellow to a fire. So it's adding air to a fire. We're going to take 20 more breaths. Forceful inhale, forceful exhale. Push, pull, in, out, in, out, in, out. Take a deep breath in. 3 sips through your mouth. Hold your breath completely full, like a squeeze, like a tube of toothpaste. Lift your pelvic floor, your navel point, push up through the crown of the head, and then pop the cork and exhale. Let everything be really soft and relaxed. Again, the horse is out of the stable. Simply watch the arrhythmic nature of the breath. Letting it be fluid and fluent. Letting it be uneven. And put yourself right in the center of yourself, behind the breastbone. Imagine body as a vehicle and you're putting yourself at the driver's seat. And feel the back body on the mat, which is the memory and the hard shell that is behind you. And it potentiates us forward as we extract the lessons from the past. So what's in front of you, the soft, squishy bits, is your potential. And feel the whole left side of the body now sinking and softening, which is your lunar primordial self, your feeling self, your ability to articulate vision. It's your innocence, your inheritance, your stock. And then release the whole right side of your body into the mat, which is your education, your consciousness, your risk taking, where you deal with the world. And then let the whole bottom floor of your house soften again, your propagation, your food, sex, money, water, survival, your money, all those primordial needs. Again, it's the kidneys, the waters, the ancestral waters. It's everything you show up with that is yours to evolve from your lineage. And you have a second floor, which is your capacity to do, but know that we only do so we can be more. We don't do to do. And it's how you handle things. It's your capacity that is built out of the stability of the first floor, and then go up into your head, your antenna, the ground of seeing, your 360 degrees of vision, your ability to dream, and the memory at the back of the mind. And now feel the whole of yourself like a sphere around you in your right dead center again. I breathe, I speak, I am, I go in, I go out, I go up, I go down. And take a deep breath in. Universal to the personal, crown of the head to the perineum, and big sigh, exhale it out, release, turning that preciousness into poetry. And do that one more time. A big inhale from the universal down to the perineum. And a big release. And one more deep breath in, crown of the head to the perineum. And a big release. And then start to move your fingers and your toes. And wiggle the ankles and the wrists. And as you are ready, you'll move to your left side. It's the oxygenated side of the heart. You're less likely to get dizzy. And pause in a fetal position, holding yourself for a moment. And then you'll use your right hand to gently move up to a seat. And with your eyes closed, rub your palms together really vigorously. Get lots of friction between your hands, warming your palms. And then make cups in your palms over your eyes with your fingertips on your hairline. And the eyeball is another ball in a mitt. So let it soften into the socket of the eye and let it be received by the cup of the eye sockets, where memory and potential meet. And let the fertile darkness in behind your hands. And then as you're ready, release the palms and welcome yourself into the light and back to the explicit place. Thank you guys very much, online friends.